Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions and Brave Kids Books, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission is the author of a beautiful new Brave Kids book that we have coming out. The book is called Amaleigha Makes a New Friend, and welcome Janice Pratt. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
I can't wait to talk about this book, and I'm so excited to bring this to the world. You guys, Jan Pratt was an educator and librarian for the past 20 years. She's taught in public schools as well as been a leader in public libraries. She currently lives in Colorado and is working on her fourth book in the Amaleigha series, in addition to nonfiction companions to this series. All right, Jan, so I really am excited to share this particular story and book with the world. Tell me first a little bit about your background as a librarian and teacher.
I have worked with kids for a really long time, and it seems like those professions just kind of fell in my lap. When I first started with kids, I was 14 and I was teaching tumbling to little kids because I loved gymnastics. And then, I went into when you have to go to school and decide what you're going to do. The school I went to didn't offer education. Can you believe that? I was a little college and education wasn't one of those options. So I got my first degree in psychology of all things, and then opened a daycare center. And I ran that daycare center for a lot of years and till my kids got old enough that they were done with playing with daycare kids, and then I went into public libraries and found a new passion there. I've always been a reader. I've always loved books, and it felt like libraries were a great place for me. I was a manager at a small rural library in Oklahoma, and our library actually won quite a few awards for the services they provided as a rural library. And my favorite part was the kids' programs. In fact, my kids actually hated those programs because in a small town, the librarian dressed up as the Cat in the Hat on Dr. Seuss Day always made the paper, and their teachers would cut out the pictures and give it to them in class, and they were always so embarrassed that their mother was the Cat in the Hat.
Oh, that's
But
so awesome.
but that transitioned into education too. I was a school librarian for a lot of years, and it was the same thing. If my kids happened to be in the school that I was working in, watching your mom walk down the hall as, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz was kind of a little weird, but it was super fun and it helped to bring stories to life.
Yeah, for sure. My goodness, those characters coming to life in the hallways. This story, this specific story, Amalia makes a new friend. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about how this story came about. And you're working on a whole series here with this book, right? So tell us a little bit about that. And as you're talking about the story, I'm going to pull up a beautiful picture that people can look at while you're chatting.
So Amalia, the character, was born in Germany. And I think that's where that name came from because it's definitely a little bit different. I had people mispronounce it all the time, and so maybe there'll be a story about Malia figuring out her name because, I mean, so many kids have that issue too, your teacher on the first day of school mispronounces your name, and it's really hard to stand up and say, "Oh, but this is how I say it," especially as a kid. But anyway, Amalia was born on a hiking trip, and I was just wandering through the woods, and somehow this character came to mind. And her first story was she was helping to make a barefoot park in her community. But this story has its background with the illustrator. And my illustrator is from Ukraine. And she has gone through some difficult transitions as we were doing the pictures for the book before. She was living in Mariposa, and there were a lot of um, disruptions in her town. And she actually had to flee with her daughter to Germany. And we lost contact for a while. And finally, we were able to, she was able to settle a little bit and find a new home in Germany. And at this point, I still don't know where her husband is, if he's still in Ukraine helping with the issues that are going on there, or if he's managed to make it back to Germany or not. So this story I kind of wanted to highlight the fact that, this whole situation over there has been a big disruption and a hardship for so many people.
Yeah, and so the illustrations are so beautiful. The illustrator's name, I don't want to say her name incorrectly now that you talked about that already. Alina Kralia.
Yeah.
Am I getting it right? Okay. Alina, so shout out to you for the beautiful illustrations. And you guys will put some information down below in our show notes today, both where you can see what Jan is up to and also our illustrator. So that is a scary story, I think, and hard to understand for some kids, but I love the idea of a pen pal. And that gave me this flashback when I first read through your book to pen pal days. Like it just seems like we don't do that anymore. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that developed with your character.
Well, I actually had a pen pal when I was in school. So this is almost a real life story in the fact that I think it was probably third or fourth grade. We had this writing class, and that was what we did. We picked a pen pal. Mine was actually from New Zealand, and throughout the year we wrote back and forth to our pen pals, and I actually carried on writing to my pen pal for many years after that. And he and his family came over on a vacation one year, and I was away at college, but my parents actually met them. I thought that was so cool that, this very remote friendship turned into, a sharing of cultures and learning about new lifestyles. And maybe in some way that fueled my passion for travel because I love to go new places and meet new people.
Well, that is awesome. How exciting. I think you did a beautiful job in the story of helping us understand, maybe helping kids understand things that they weren't understanding about the story of what has been going on in Ukraine. What matters to you the most when it comes to helping kids?
I think that oftentimes they feel undervalued. We're very quick as adults to say that their ideas are too far-fetched or unrealistic or, maybe unmanageable at 5 or 10 or 12. And there have been so many powerful stories recently about maybe teens and tweens that are making a difference in the world. And I feel like that can happen at any age. You might need help. You might not be able to make, a barefoot park all by yourself, or you might not be able to help the situation in the Ukraine all by yourself. But with support, you can make a difference in the world. And I think if we start building that advocacy when we're young, then we continue it as we're adults.
Definitely. And what a powerful thing to have a parent or a teacher be the model and the guide for that as early as possible. I think that's so amazing. That's world changing stuff to me when you think about it. So, speaking of that barefoot park, tell me a little bit about your writing goals and these other projects you have and that you're working on.
So, on another hike, I've hiked 2 different caminos in Spain, which are really long walks across the country. I did one from the west to the east, and then did one in Portugal from the south to the north, and they all end up in Santiago, Spain. And those are journeys, whenever you're out walking or taking that time, almost like a sabbatical from your life, you can figure out where you want to go or what you want to do or new goals in life. And so Amalia is going to go on a Camino adventure with her grandmother. That's the next book because it's such a personal story for me. So that one's in the works. And then on one of those Caminos, I had a flash of a companion nonfiction book to go with each of the stories. So a lot of people don't know what barefoot parks are because they're not super common in the United States, although I think there are becoming a few more developed around the country. But so I thought there would be a companion book to go with that talks about why is it so important for our feet to be barefoot. So
Nice.
kind of going into the science of reflexology and earthing and how healthy that is for you.
Ooh, I love it. Yes. Earthing, you guys. And one thing about Jan and all of the authors in our community is that they know about this cool healing stuff. Earthing is such a powerful thing. I can't say I had heard that term before today when you said barefoot park. And immediately in my mind, I'm like, barefoot park. Yes. Like, yes, yes, yes. Right. I love it. Okay. So, I want to ask you what you think is important for parents to know about this particular story. So I envision this being read to your son or daughter or your grandkid, and reading to kids is such a powerful thing. There's so many things about it I could talk about in terms of the bonding that happens in those moments of reading to a child. And this particular story, I know, there's a mission inside of you for what you want the kids to know, but also this is a parent journey. It's a double whammy. It's an awesome double whammy, right? So what do you want the parents to know about this particular story? What's your message to them today?
I think the message is that you have to help kids understand difficult situations in the world. It doesn't have to be you know, war, or not that we haven't had enough of those, but sometimes they're just situations in our own communities or in our schools that are hard topics to talk about. And we often want to just shove them under the rug, and we can't. Kids are dealing with them just like we are. And so sometimes when we can deal with our emotions and our reactions to these together, it can really help support both of us rather than shoving the topic under the rug.
There's
So
no
I,
doubt about that.
I'm hoping that maybe it's a discussion starter.
Exactly. And what a gift it would be as a discussion starter. I often think that my children have been my biggest teachers, and that I wanted to tell parents to relax a little bit and look at their kids as their teachers versus always having to be the authority over our kids. What are they there to help us learn? And that changes everything in that moment when you ask that question.
Exactly.
So Jan, what are some last words that you want to share with the audience today about Amalia Makes a New Friend and this journey with her pen pal?
I think I think I would just like for everybody to be as open as they can to new experiences and to enjoy relationships that they have with the kids in their lives, even if they're not your own kids, I mean, you might have neighbors or friends or nieces or nephews that you can help support in amazing ways. It could be reaching out with a letter, it could be making a phone call, it could be reading a story. There's so many ways we can connect and support these growing human beings that are gonna be, the adults in the world soon.
Awesome, Jan. I wanted to show the beautiful book one more time there. And lastly, just thank you so much for what you do in the world, for your passion, and thanks for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thanks for having me, it was super fun.
So we're also going to have a little book launch party, you guys. So you can come back for our Brave Kids Books book launch party for Amaleigha Makes a New Friend. There's some information down below about that. And Jan will be there with our Brave Kids Books director also, Kelly Kashula. Kelly, thank you so much for everything you've done to make this book come alive. And we're going to be doing a couple of fun giveaways that day for our party. If you're listening to this interview anytime after August, well, that means you need to hop over to Amazon and grab your beautiful copy of this book. We are excited to share this out with the world. We want to get it in the hands of parents and grandparents and mentors and teachers and our libraries. And we hope you help us out with that. And lastly, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.